commission to order. I'm told this is a public hearing and we don't need to take roll, but thank you all for coming. This will probably be covered by Susan and Tim during the process, but want to say that the master plan process itself, or the process of zoning these parcels, is a multi-step process. This evening we're going to be focusing on the amendment to the master plan that we've looked at before back in June, presented to council in July, and this is an opportunity for us to get feedback from you related to this document specifically. It's not our plan this evening to talk about specific dimensional requirements or what might occur on this site beyond what the master plan has already laid out. And the master plan process itself is kind of the first step in being able to get further code applied to the parcels identified here, and is taking the DAC plan and everything that's been talked about to this point into a more formalized document that's still very general in nature. So Susan will give us a brief introduction and turn it over to Tim, I believe.
Everyone for being here, and I just have kind of an iterative role here, and that is, just like Dylan said, that we're using an iterative process with our town planning effort. There's been a lot of activities, and the council's taken a number of actions. I think you'll remember that the doc group presented their report to the town council at the end of December. And then in January, the town council approved the first of a series of resolutions. And the first resolution set a whole number of activities that were to happen and assigned those to different groups. So the Parks, Open Space, and Trails Committee, the PAC, which is the Public Arts Commission, and the P&Z were all outlined different tasks to do, including our town attorney to look at kind of some of the legal obstacles, and engineers to look at some of the physical obstacles. But what the P&Z was charged with was 2 items. And one of those is the master plan, which is the purpose of tonight's meeting, and the other was kind of the zoning piece and looking at the zoning options. And we probably have confused this because we've been holding a lot of different meetings on our town planning effort. And so you've probably been at meetings where we've talked about the master plan amendment, and we've talked about options, and we've talked about zoning. And so what we hope to do tonight is to make it clear what the master plan is and what it does. And what we're looking for tonight is for the public to make comments on the master plan amendment itself. And we know that you came here, you may have, you're here to talk about other options on the property, so we're going to allow you to do that, but that's kind of in the time available. What we want to do is start the hearing talking about the master plan, and then once all those comments on the general master plan have been covered, then if you want to make comments about the options, you can do so. But the next step, for example, with this process, we're looking to get comments tonight. Then we'd also like, if there's something that we answered at this meeting, you want to provide another comment, if you could give us comments by email by Thursday, that would be great. Then the P&Z is going to consider the comments they heard tonight, anything additional, and refer this out during kind of the more formal, this is part of the formalized adoption process, but refer them out to our referral agencies, and we're looking then for the P&Z to pass a resolution adopting the master plan probably in October, closely followed by the town council also adopting the plan amendment that you're going to hear about with Tim's presentation. And I'm going to jump in if I need to in terms of helping to clarify kind of maybe the difference between the master plan and some of the options that you've seen at other meetings. But I think we can go ahead and have Tim Malloy, he's our consultant who's been working with us on the master plan amendment, have Tim make his presentation. I think you all know the P&Z is here, and we have Mike Scanlon in the office, in the audience too. And it's another thing, we're here for public comment. We're not here for a public kind of back and forth discussion. If there is a question that we think is going to benefit everybody in the audience, we might choose to answer it then. Otherwise, we'll answer questions at the end. Does that all make sense to everyone? Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Tim.
Okay. Can people hear me? Is this on? Test 1, 2?
Yeah.
On? Okay. Let me ask a question about this microphone. Is it absolutely necessary that I use it? Do we not get recorded? Okay, all right. So, my name is Tim Malloy, and I'm a consultant for the town working on the update of the amendment of the master plan for just the area that was included in the Our Town study. And if you look on this exhibit here, this map, you can see this sort of area that's outlined. That was the confines of the area that was part of the Our Town study. So one thing about this document, to be clear, it applies only to that area and not to other areas outside of that boundary. Secondarily, it is an amendment to the existing Town of Basalt 2007 master plan. And it applies some new ideas and some new thoughts and some new recommendations to the area, the study area, the Our Town study area. The document itself includes 4 parts. One part is the text, which you see up here, and I apologize that the projector is pretty fuzzy, so you probably won't be able to read it. I see many of you have it in your hands already. I'm going to be describing sort of the high points of the text, so you don't have to necessarily read it if you don't want, and you can also download it on the website. The second part is a revised future land use map, which is this drawing right here that's up on the wall. The third part is to incorporate the DAC report as reviewed and slightly modified by the Planning Commission and the Town Council. And the DAC report includes those sort of recommendations and ideas that were summarized through the initial community input process that included all the drawings and the sketches and the thoughts shared by everybody during that process that ended, I believe, in April or something like that. And that document also includes this map, which is called the Our Town Planning Map. And this is as modified by the Planning Commission and the Town Council, and those modifications were relatively minor. They talked about how the Midland Avenue should tee in here, and also a few changes that removed some text from the map having to do with the heights of buildings, because that was intended to be studied in greater detail in the subsequent work that was done or is ongoing, that was started by CCY. The fourth part is a new typology map, which you see here, and some description sheets, which are essentially minimal text and some photographs. And those description sheets are intended to show, to provide sort of an idea to property owners and developers and the community about the general character of what development within the study area should look like. And one of those description sheets focuses primarily on the open space components, because a significant portion of the area is intended to be park and open space, as everyone is aware of, having participated in that process. And the other part has more to do with the structures and what the sort of general ideas about the character of the structures. So what is the master plan amendment, and why is it worth doing? Well, for one thing, the state enabling legislation says that if you're going to conduct rezoning, which is a quasi-judicial action, or some changes to your land use code, you need to evaluate those changes for compliance with an adopted master plan. And your adopted master plan, the 2007 master plan, has some different ideas about what should occur in this area than what has come from all of the community effort, all the community input about what you feel should occur there now. So there's a need to adjust the maps and the recommendations in your current master plan to reflect all the work that has been done to date with respect to what the community now thinks should occur on these parcels within the study area. It also provides broad, and remember this is sort of broad overarching guidelines. Generally what kinds of uses, what sort of mix of uses are being contemplated here. Not the specifics about building footprint, building height. All of those things are sort of part of that ongoing work that was done by CCY and for which you are still in the process of evaluating the economic impacts of. It also provides continuity in the decision-making process. It doesn't matter who's on the Planning Commission 3 years from now or the Town Council. This document will, having been adopted by the Planning Commission and the Town Council, will live on and will continue to be there for the community to reference regardless of who is sitting in the chairs. And it protects public investment so that you know what are the intended uses, what infrastructure needs to be installed to make this work, what roadway improvements, what trail improvements make sense to realize the goal that was identified in the DAC report. So that's what it is. One of the things that it is not adopting the options that have been looked at by CCY, as Susan indicated in her descriptive comments. That's a step further. That's sort of the next step after this is looking at in more detail footprints, building height, general character, land uses, etc. And that is a step that could become part of a zoning amendment later. But it is not, those options are not included in this document, and nothing about this document precludes any further discussion about those options and what is the right final solution for the individual parcels within the study area. So, I'm going to just go as quickly as I can through the actual document. As I said, I hope many of you have it in your hands because this is going to be very hard to see. But I'm just going to kind of go through here and give you a basic idea of what is contained in here, and then we can take questions as needed. So the first part of the document that you see here, page 1, outlines the study area, and it gives the basic background about the Our-Town planning area process, how that went, the number of participants, the fact that there were surveys done, etc. And on subsequent pages, we have a description of the DAC report, its recommendations, a summary of the Town Council and Planning Commission revisions, which I mentioned in my opening comments. And then we go into the authority under state statutes, which I mentioned a little while ago, and how the document is intended to be used. And one of the important ideas of this amendment is it's intended to be used together with the existing adopted 2007 master plan. So the policies and recommendations and future planning ideas that are in this document will be reviewed when somebody comes in to make a proposal for development within the study area, as will the current policies in the the existing 2000 master plan, to the extent that they don't contradict with the policies in this document. In the event that there is a contradiction with the policies in the master plan amendment that you see here tonight, this document will take precedent over the 2007 master plan. So we also have a section in here that's called potential zoning changes and other recommendations. So the work that's being done by CCY that's looking specifically at uses and building footprints and building heights and that sort of thing, it will probably lead, or one logical step would be for it to lead to an amendment to your zoning code, perhaps a new zone district that would achieve the objectives of that work. We actually recommend here in this master plan that you do study the appropriate zone districts, the standards, the uses, and so forth, that would allow you to realize the recommendations and the ideas that are contained in the DAC report. And so that's one of the recommendations that's in here. On page 5 of the document, there's a discussion about the Basalt Center Circle property. That has a lot of sort of complicated aspects to it, and that is a property that we're recommending in this document be the subject of a sub-area plan or a more specific study to look at the potential for buildings which might be taller than are currently permitted under your code, the ideas for trail connections through that site, how vehicle circulation should work, how the parking issue should be resolved, sort of the downtown parking shortage. So those, there are recommendations in the document on page 5 related to that. Also on page 5 is a discussion about the trails issue and the fact that you have recently adopted a open space and trails master plan. And that document should be reviewed again for ideas relative to how to further those pedestrian connections from the town core to the rivers, between parcels, and how to connect the community better to the river. All of those ideas are sort of furthered in this document as well. And then the last section, which you see on page 6, at the bottom of page 6, is referred to as revised typology map and typology descriptions. And that is here again the map that you see on the wall, and those descriptions follow the map, and they are 2 sheets that have, and I'll actually flip to those so that you can see them. Are they? Oh, there they are. Yeah. So these are the 2 sheets. The first one, again, deals more with the open space components and park components, and the second more with structures. But they're intended to just give a basic idea about the character of development within this area. This is actually an addition to a whole typology section that's in the current 2007 master plan. The only real change to the map is that we've added a new area called 2D, which you see down here, and it's called Our Town Vitality Area. And that 2D just refers to the entire study area boundary. And these are the 2D sheets, Our Town Vitality Area, and so they are intended to relate only to those areas that are identified as 2D here on the map. So that's a description of the basic components, why we're doing it, what the purpose is, what the sort of relationship is to the work that's been done by CCY, and sort of a basic background of the master plan amendment. And I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have before you all begin to discuss this further.
Again, the first set of comments that we'd like to get is on the master plan amendment as presented by Tim. And when you speak, if you can say your name for the record, please.
And do you want to give people a microphone?
Yeah, and Tim and I, and actually Jen's going to take the other mic. Actually, James, you're here. James will take the other mic, and we'll hand the mic to you. So if you could wait till you get the mic, that would be great.
Margot Pendleton. I'm curious, this amendment to the 2007 master plan, you say your schedule is to have this ratified by council sometime the first couple of weeks in October?
It would be. We will be looking to have the P&Z look at adopting it in late October, the council either late October or November.
So what kind of zoning recommendations might you have on these parcels?
Margo, I'm going to hold that question to the end, just because we're trying to get general comments on the master plan, and then I'll answer that at the end when we're kind of transitioning.
Okay. I guess I'm just curious about the timing of everything. It seems, I mean, could one do another amendment to the master plan?
That question, Tim, why don't you take that first?
Yes, you can.
I mean, if one was to change the size of the parcels that are sort of laid out here, can one do another amendment to the amendment?
Tim, might it help you to... We have a problem that I need to have the mic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, that's okay. I know, it's all right. Well, 2 questions. One is that we're actually doing a 2-step with the master plan. We're doing an Our Town master plan amendment to do this particular site here. Kind of concurrently, we're working on an overall update to the 2007 master plan. And we've identified in the text some of the things that we're going to be looking at in that second amendment. And briefly, the zoning piece is different, but I kind of want to really re-emphasize a couple things. And one is that the dock map here shows very general bubbles. It doesn't really specify exact building envelopes or height. And there were modifications to the dock map. This was the original map that the dock group recommended. And based on input from the town council, some of those items were changed. But it is a very general map, and there's a lot of flexibility incorporated in the plan amendment. And the P&Z has done some work on the zoning piece, and they're going to re-pick that up tomorrow night as they're just talking about different districts that might have applicability to the area. So we're not going to do, probably we don't want to do a discussion here because we want to make sure that everybody has comments on the master plan itself. So let's go ahead and refocus on the master plan, and then at the end maybe we can talk more about the zoning piece.
But suffice it to say that zoning is a subsequent step that comes after a master plan amendment. And the only reason that you would need to amend the master plan again would be if whatever zoning it is you're contemplating is grossly inconsistent with the recommendations of this master plan, which is unlikely since there's a fair amount of flexibility in this document to allow a variety of discussion.
So anybody else have comments on the master plan before I move on to that?
Kathleen Cole. Personally, I'm thrilled to see a community center in there on the river, and I think that's a real positive step. Susan, can you tell me again, late October, hopefully for P&Z ratification of the amendment, and
So what we are looking at is getting the comments from this group. Any additional public comments anyone can submit in the next couple days. And then at the meeting on the September 15th, the P&Z would not hold a public hearing because that's the purpose of this meeting. They would consider if there's any additional changes they would like to make before they send it out for kind of the official agency review period, and then they would get those comments back. We were looking at October 20th as the date where we would look to have the council approve the master plan, and then the town council, looking at the last meeting in October or November for adoption.
okay, great. I think it looks really good.
Mark Kwasinski, a lot of people have probably heard too much of me, but I'm here because I have been very involved. I've read the master plan, and what I just wanted to talk about, my biggest concern about the master plan is that the master plan and the CDC parcel, the use of the CDC parcel and the low application, they've all been presented and they've been entwined so tightly in the discussions that I think it's a problem because no matter how wonderful an architect might be, how much they might love their own town, I think the intentions that drive people's decisions, the comments they made, are extremely important in the discussion process. Now, the discussion process has been going on for a long time, and if someone's intentions are more to make a good developer project rather than a project that first and foremost serves the public and ask the developer to come in, those are two different things. And I think that what we have seen and the master plan review that concerns me is that there's been such heavy influence from the low group and their architectural representatives and advisors and what have you in this process. So that's my concern. I did sit in on the last meeting of the Planning and Zoning, and I noticed on the parcel from Midland Spur towards RMI, there wasn't a use of park allowed. Maybe I missed that, but I saw that there were some other things. There was a hotel and there was residential use and some other things, but according to the zoning of allowed uses, that was something that was overlooked. And the other point that I would like to make is I think that we've forgotten how, we're all trying to do something great with the park and we all have different visions, but when that park is done, that is going to be so value enhancing to the entire rest of the town. I would ask you to consider different zoning for that parcel than the C2 zone district or whatever it is on the Clark's Market parcel. And I do want to say something about square footage because, as I said, it has been intertwined with this whole process. When Lowe's made the initial presentation of that gargantuan 150,000 square feet, I'm told that the big hotel down in Willis is 76, so that's two of those sized plunked down here. When that happened, there was such an outcry. Council made the recommendation, let's push the development back to Midland Spur. Let's cut this in half for open space. And I thought, that's a pretty good idea. But what came of that was 75,000 square feet, which is half of 150. Where did that come from? If they had said 500,000 square feet, would we now be looking at 250 over there? I think we need to look at that and realize where the opinions that we've had, asked us to approve, where those come from. And I think that we really need to justify and measure the value of Open River Park, the beauty of that, with really what the building uses are, and balance that with paying back the CDC, and if Basalt wants to issue bonds, or if we want to just replace the bonds, let's do that. So, I'd ask you to just pause and let's look at it from the public's perspective rather than the developers. Thank you.
Mark, I have one question for you. You referenced the master plan as being intertwined for a development proposal. Is there a specific portion of the master plan amendment that you feel speaks to that?
Well, I think the whole process has been running parallel. One day you're talking about the master plan. There's been a statement made we needed to get Lowe's into a pre-development agreement, and everything has been chugging down the path towards that, and there's been tremendous pressure put on the decision makers to do this. And I mean, this is not a development deal for been talking about it, and I've heard council, and I've heard you talking, and it's impossible to not have those things been going, because
Tonight we're here to talk specifically about the master plan. So is there something that's within this amendment that you feel speaks to something specific related to a development application?
It's a general concern.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just say something to her, Kathy? Go ahead.
Hi, Kathy Clay. Kathy, wait. Oh, sorry. I'm wondering if somebody can go through these 2Ds and 2As and 2Bs and the different colored of the dots on this map and just explain what those are more specifically, because I don't see them really illustrated in the document, and I think that would be helpful.
Is this on again? There we go. First of all, I'm going to go over here and point to this. All of these, 1A, 1B, 1C, 2A, 2B, 2C, they're all at the back of the existing 2007 Basalt Master Plan. Those are already all been in place for 6 or 8 years now. The only new one is this one here, 2D. And that one is reflected on these two sheets. So for each one of those, 1A, 1B, et cetera, there are sheets like this in the typology section of the existing master plan. And since the only changes that we're talking about, the 2D, is all contained within the boundary of the R-Town study area, that's the only thing that changes. All of the rest remain the same.
So 2B is already in the 07?
Correct.
There it is on this map?
Correct. Yep.
Here, I'll give you.
Go ahead.
Oh, hi, I'm Bill Carpenter, and I just had a couple concerns for the master plan. And I think, just looking through this document and having been to some of the meetings over the last, 18 years, that I'm really concerned about 4-story buildings in downtown. I just think that they need to be, even 3-story buildings need to be really considered carefully in terms of looking at the DAC recommendations of preserving the small town character of Basalt. I think you put a 4-story building in there and it's ruined unless it's really carefully done. No matter if you set it back 10 feet and you have a little deck around the outside, or half 4th story or whatever you call it, 3.5 stories, it's still 4 stories. So I'm concerned about that. And also I'm concerned about this area that has somehow grown into our vitality area, and I just want to point it out. And I guess the easiest way to look at it is right here, because this is a hillside here, and this is all scrub oak, and there's no scrub oak over on this side of Basalt anymore. In this area, the Merino Park used to be a park, actually. When I moved here, it was a park, and Pam would eat lunch there every day, and kids and I would go down and climb the trees, and we'd play in the park. That was a park. Now this whole area is in part of the vitality area, and it's a hillside where there's trees. And when we built our house, we had to plant a tree for every tree that we cut down. And that didn't happen over here when they gutted the trailer park and they hacked all those huge, huge, beautiful willow trees. It didn't happen. And when my other point is, when we built our house, we got no variances. We didn't get any allowances. I wanted to build a walkout basement, and the planning department said no. We ended up changing our whole design of our house to the planners to fit the planners, and this is where I have to live still. And I just want to say, don't give these breaks to people that don't need them.
I just have a quick comment on what the gentleman mentioned about 4 stories, because there is a comment in the DAC report that talks about the possibility of 4 stories on the Basalt Center Circle property. But the master plan text says specifically about that more detailed analysis is warranted in order to better plan for internal circulation, building density, and other.
Some of the things that Bell Carpenter said about many stories, and Susan, you said earlier that the DAC report recommended up to 4 stories. Well, the DAC study. The DAC report said no more than 2 stories on that area. And so that not 4 stories or any more than 2. And the other thing, question I have, I might have something to say later, but I look at this, you guys aren't going to change anything of the existing master plan. I mean, if I look at 2B, where the mobile home court is now, that's labeled as a town center. I mean, to put a town center there is ridiculous. We already have a town center over on Midland Avenue. Are you not going to change some of these absurd things in the old report? Are you just going to let them slide?
The answer is that the town has already begun a process of a comprehensive amendment of the master plan. So one way that you could consider this master plan amendment that's before you today is as an interim step. It's going to take us until probably sometime the middle of next year or later before the overall master plan update would be adopted. So this is something that addresses specifically this area during the time when the town is reevaluating the master plan in total. And when we do that work, then the typology map and all those typology descriptions will be a component of that process and that project.
Steve Chase, I live in Basalt. One of the things that's missing, Tim, that always frustrates me a little bit is elevation. Because we know, for instance, we can talk 2 stories, 3 stories, 4 stories. In reality, there are some precedents, and we might talk in terms of height, feet. For instance, I think the Ritchie building is 36 feet. Does that help me with that, Susan?
No, the corner building's more than that.
Okay, just to get a sense of height, and I know, and we're hoping that P&Z is going to help us with this, and it would also be interesting to note that the 40 feet, if we just pick an arbitrary number, since there are so many other arbitrary things that we're looking at, I'll mention that in a minute, but if we use a height like that, and we say that the town of Basalt actually goes up on a rise. If you go to the barber shop at the end of town and you look back on our park, on our riverfront area, there's a huge difference. And James was supposed to help me with that at one point. I don't know what the difference is, but I think P&C should know that, so that when you look at building heights and so forth, we take into account the scale of the town. It's true that 4 stories might look ridiculous in the middle of town, and although I'm not in favor of a 4-story building on the river, but it would be a lot lower in elevation in a relative sense. Unlike, when we go to the DAC report, and I was a member of the DAC, and it's interesting that there are 2 DAC maps. And Susan, you described it as the original DAC map, and then the DAC map that was adjusted by council. But what's still vague, and what we'll look to you for leadership, and I'm talking to the P&Z at this point, is that these vague circles to be used for vitality areas dismisses the space that has become known as the polygon. It seems to dismiss the site from the most westerly part of the view plane, if you will, to the arbitrary line that was drawn on the Midland Spur as a potential development site. I just want to bring that up because if you're using the DAC report or the variation of the DAC report, then councils or P&Z is going to have to look at this and say, wait a minute, where are these lines? Who drew them? How did it become that way? What are the variations in height between the base elevation on Two Rivers Road to the barber shop? And so I think that really should be looked at. And we have almost no visuals as a lay community to see what our town looks like from the barber shop looking back toward our river. And I think that has to be taken into account as well.
Wasn't there someone else before you, since they're not standing up? Thank you.
Hi, is it on? You know, I'm Cindy Hirschfeld. I live in Southside, and my overall question about the plan, which I keep thinking somebody else will answer for me, is I don't understand why everyone is so fixated on a hotel. When I went to a town council meeting, I guess back in June, somebody had raised the question of what were the current occupancy studies in Basalt, and nobody had an answer. And I still haven't seen an answer to that. And we have, the brand new Element Hotel opening, 2 miles away from here. which I think the prudent thing would be to see how that hotel does and what the occupancy levels are with that. And when I looked back at the town planning results again this morning, I saw there were only 10% of respondents wanted a hotel built on this property. So I just, if anybody can enlighten me, I really don't understand why everybody's so fixated on it, because it doesn't seem what people want. It doesn't seem like it's fulfilling a need. Maybe once Element Hotel opens and is open for a few years and we really see what kind of a need there is, at that point, Frank Taverna will be ready to sell his old Clark's property, and that could be the site for a hotel. But I'm mystified.
Well, we're crossing the lines between the master plan amendment and the work that has been done by the town and CCY that has been looking at these various options. This document that's presented to you tonight does not specifically say that a hotel should be built on any of these sites. That's not part of the document. That is an additional document that was submitted by Mark Kwasinski that was included in the Planning Commission's packet, but it's not part of the master plan amendment.
And actually, I think that might bear some clarification, because I think someone else might have referred to it. Mark handed out at all the seats this particular option, and that, and I was wondering if you were confused too. And this is Mark. I'm not sure if Mark was representing a group or himself with this one, but this is just a particular option, and it's not included in the master plan.
But, it is true that there's been a fair amount of discussion regarding a hotel in this area, and, we can all look back through the notes and see some of that discussion. I know that some of it has to do with wanting to encourage or increase the number of people, and as a way of trying to sort of revitalize downtown, to sort of have people staying downtown. I know, for example, that Rocky Mountain Institute next door was very excited about the idea of a hotel in this area, because they are very anxious to go ahead with their sort of demonstration and convention ideas, and that they're very keen on the idea of having nice accommodations in the downtown area. So those are some of the background discussions about why a hotel has been discussed. But to be clear, what you should really be looking at is this map, which is the outcome of the DAC work, shows mixed use in this area. It does show this is obviously the Lions parcel. This is the spur, Midland Spur. This is the piece that's being discussed for development, the west half of the CDC property. This is the rest, which is shown as park and open space, along with the parcel that the town purchased on the river, which is park and open space. So what this is showing is mixed use, some plazas, and then more recommendations for the Basalt Center Circle property. But specifically in this document, there isn't an actual recommendation for a hotel.
I mean, if it comes down to something like that, I would be happy to help, volunteer spearhead getting statistics.
Mm-hmm.
I think the town might have occupancy statistics already, but it seems like nobody does. So.
Yeah, and if the work that's been done by CCY in the town comes to a code amendment, which we recommend that you do look seriously at amending, looking at a new zone district or districts to achieve the objectives of the DAC in this area, then the specific uses for that zone district would be identified in the district standards, and that might include a hotel if you all agree that that's the right thing to do. But that is not part of this document.
I think that Norm has his own mic there.
There it goes. I'd just like to thank you, Tim, for sort of outlining that. I'd just like to add a couple of things. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Norm Clayson. I have a building in town here, and I just wanted to maybe answer some of your questions, ma'am. The idea of a hotel has been part of the discussions in this town for many, many years. It kind of came to the fore with the opportunity that presents itself in the CDC parcel. One of the things that Basalt doesn't really have is a place where people can stay in a high value, sort of high amenity format. I did spend 4 years working for Rocky Mountain Institute as their communications director, and I can tell you that we're going to see here in the town thousands of people that are going to come to visit that building, because it is probably the most sustainable building, at least in the western United States, if not the United States itself. And that not only will bring people to visit, as it has for years out at Snowmass, but it will also bring heads of state. It'll bring a lot of people that are looking to add to their communities the same kind of environmental planning that Rocky Mountain has. We have no place for them to stay. Now, we do have some hotels in town, and I'll give you that, but I'm talking about a really nice amenity to go with the town of Basalt, to bring people here, because the second part of the puzzle has always been for Basalt that in the business community, do you own a business here? Okay. If you do, you will find that you suffer immensely about 7 months a year. There's about 3 months in the summer quite active. December's quite active. The master plan with the hotel was designed primarily to provide an amenity that would give the town some bodies for the other 7 months a year, whether it's people staying here that would normally stay, say, in Snowmass or Aspen. It just gives us a vitality that we really seriously need. And I don't think that anyone that owns a business here would argue the fact that we do need it, and if we don't get bodies here soon, we're going to really be struggling and might not even have a town to come back to, because now we're looking at the tree farm, adding more space. The bypass happened. The master plan is all about what we're going to do when the highway bypassed us, what's going on in Willits, what's going on in the tree farm, and what are our little tiny opportunities here. And I think that's exactly what you're seeing with the master plan. And that's what it's been about for years and years. I hope I've answered your question a little bit anyway.
A little bit. I just actually, yeah, we don't want a discussion back and forth.
I'll talk to you afterwards. I have some points to provide.
Patrice, I think you're next.
Patrice Becker, Basalt. I'm concerned with 2D. Looks like it's on Lions Park, and you're talking about a vitality area. Can you explain exactly what that means? Does that mean buildings? Does that mean open space? Up here there's buildings and some open space, so if you could explain that. I don't want to see any buildings on Lions Park. Thank you.
Well, there are already buildings on Lions Park in the form of town hall. No more buildings. Okay. Well, first of all, when we refer to 2D, that has to do with the typologies, and again, that speaks to character of the development that might occur there. There is, as you know, an ongoing process to talk about whether or not there's going to be a change in the structures on that parcel. And that is not yet completed. There's, as I understand, an economic impact analysis that's being done that will be presented to the community and discussed. And then following on that, there is the potential to consider whether or not you're going to change the zoning and look at redevelopment of Lions Park. But that decision is not in this document. That decision is yet to come. So when we talk about 2D, we're saying that if you all decide that you're going to build something new anywhere within the area that's identified as 2D, that includes Lions Park, it includes Merino Park, it includes the Basalt Center Circle property, and it includes the Pan and Fork, the CDC parcel, then do something that looks and feels like this. This gives you an idea of what the character that you should look for in the development. But it doesn't say that you should do buildings on that parcel. So that's the short answer. I mean, there's a significant discussion, I think, yet to come about what actually is going to happen with Lions Park.
So, to be clear, the original doc map, which doc map was advocating this concept called the Big V across here. And so what that was envisioning, either, you know, the short term or the long term, was envisioning a redevelopment of Lions Park. So those maps show essentially where Town Hall is. That building would be removed, and then there would be new buildings built in this area of Lions Park. So kind of, you know, generally, now keep in mind this map is very general in terms of those bubbles about where they would occur, and that's part of the master plan. So we're not trying to lock ourselves in. There's been other more detailed studies that have happened that start to suggest, you know, what would specifically happen in here. What this master plan is doing is incorporating those and supporting those recommendations of the DOC group, and it's saying that the character is going to be developed like this particular area. What it exactly is will be really a lot more study in the future.
But it doesn't compel that there be a change to Lions Park. It says if you're going to change Lions Park, look at it like this. It doesn't say you must change Lions Park. Because if you decide to do something to that area, you should do it in a character like this. And 2D, by the way, doesn't just apply to Lions Park. It applies to all of those parcels that are in the study area.
James, could you give Sandy the mic?
Hi, I'm Sandy Kaharchek from Basalt. I would, in that same line, really encourage your committee, your PNC, to look at the proposal that I had given, and it's actually down there on the floor. Do you mind, Susan? And I made it a little bit more detailed, a little bit more specific, and on the back is also reasons that, you know, I feel are really important about thinking about possibly, thanks, if you can put it up there, or maybe put it up there.
I was going to pick up your other.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. There's a topography also of that too. It's really small. It's pretty dinky. So, but of the other one, there, as far as possibly moving the building, which is presently where the Wiley is, moving it back against the hillside, curving Midland Spur a little bit in front of it instead, and thereby leaving the whole Lions Park, most of it, empty, and possibly could be more Saturday market, fair, everything, which also then Midland Spur would also lead in right into the Polygon area. So I hope that you also consider that when you're thinking about Lions Park. Thank you.
We're going to take comments from everybody before, and then we're not trying to have a debate. So.
Royal Laybourne, thanks for the opportunity. Jerry's answer that he got about asking about some of the other designations on other adjacent parcels that are surrounded by the Our Town study area is confusing to me to hear that next year that this is an interim amendment, that next year we'll be revisiting the same issues on surrounding parcels. And so it begs the question that Mark brought up, it seems like to me, that there's an emphasis to do an interim amendment to the master plan that is part of the process to rezone this parcel. And it seems like that if we're going to look at the master plan in 2016, that we're being asked to do it without revising the whole master plan. I don't understand why that step would be there. Mark's suggesting that it's being pushed forward to help accommodate the effort by low development to redevelop or develop the CDC property, and that's more important. My question is, or my comment to the board, and I'm not clear about this whole thing, but it seems like that there's almost two different areas, and then maybe that's splitting hairs, but that's the nature of all this stuff. The 2D area that's all identified there, it strikes me as being that the portion that is, I think it referred to in here as the town center circle area, which is Clark's Market area. Seems like it's that the community, through all the meetings that I've attended, has asked for much more intense development there. And for, and that's what this seems like it's talking about when I look at this document. So I guess my comment would be is that it seems like that the portion that is on the other side of Midland Avenue and Lions Park and Merino Park and the CDC parcel is actually probably something that I would ask would be taken out of this, that the focus really should be towards the city center circle area. Thank you.
There's an important point here that I think is worth addressing, and that is that the reason for the interim step is because you have people who are interested in this area for development. Right now, your master plan says that it should be mixed-use commercial all the way along Two Rivers Road to Midland. So if you are wanting to honor the work that your community did during the Our-Town planning process, the result of which to date has been the DAC report and then these subsequent options that have been looked at, but in particular the DAC report, I would think that you would want to adopt this master plan amendment because it identifies open space as being, a component of the CDC parcel here. Whereas your current master plan says all of this should be mixed-use commercial. So that's why we want to provide the town with a tool that it can use when a developer does come in that's more consistent with your objectives and your vision for this area than your current master plan. We want to do that right away so that you have that on file when somebody comes in, and they may come in soon. The rest of the work that we're talking about is really a more comprehensive update of your master plan that looks at what's your growth rate been, what's your population change been, how have the policies that are in that 2000 master plan worked or not worked for you? Do they need to be tweaked, changed? Is there something about the future land use map, for example, these areas that are across the street, that needs to be revisited? That's a different and more comprehensive process. So.
Thank you. Hi, Todd Hartley, live in Southside also. I'm just curious with the 2D zoning, with the the Clark's Market building and the Aspinall Hotel, how in play are those? I mean, is there really, or is that something we have no idea about? I mean, is that just Frank Taverna dragging his feet? And who are the owners of the Aspinall? Do we even know? I mean, do they have any intention of, are they ever considering redeveloping or selling or anything like that? Not at this time. So that's okay. So this is just sort of a wish list, sort of a best case scenario thing. Because I wonder, because that where the Aspinall is strikes me as a wonderful place for a hotel. But do we really need two on the same street? If they could redevelop that and make it sort of a nicer boutique hotel, could we support two hotels that close to one another in this town? I don't know that we would have enough people to fill them. But I was just curious mainly about how in play they are, and it doesn't sound like they are at all at this point.
I'm Lynn Nichols. I live near Basalt. if we were to zone the Pan and Fork as park and not have any more development on it, would that possibly help the Clark's Market Aspinall parcel to be more in play, or to give more, to kind of force the hand that if development is going to happen, if developers are going to come here, this is where you're going to develop? Because the park is going to be open space, possibly, you know, with an open air community center, but really we're going to use it as a park, and we're going to put the development and develop in such a way that we're developing in a really dense way. And so I'm wondering if that might encourage the Aspinall and Frank Taverna and developers to maybe get on it and work together.
So, you know, the object of this meeting really wasn't to get, you know, into a debate back and forth with us. So I'm kind of thinking that if you have other questions, you know, we're here. You know, you can, I'm Susan P. at Basalt.net. I'm going to be here for a while cleaning up. But there's a lot of people here who haven't spoken. Is there anybody who wants to make any other comment on the master plan? Or any other item on the Our Town process? Mike, did you want to say anything? So I think we can go ahead then and wrap up. So if you have additional comments, then, you know, why don't you send them to me? I'm easily found, Susan P. at Basalt.net. And if you could get those to us in the next couple days, that would really be helpful, I would say, by the end of the day, Thursday. And again, then we're looking to have a meeting on September 15th where we would not be taking public comment to take the next step in the adoption process. You know, hopefully we're looking at October 20th, and then with the town council taking action soon after that. There's a lot of other activities in our town planning effort that are going on. I think you probably know, for example, that we're doing an economic analysis. This particular piece is very specific then to the property that's currently owned by the Roaring Fork Community Development Corporation. And so that will be on a town council agenda. And your best bet on timing of that is really to watch the town council agendas and look in the newspaper to see when those efforts are going on. Our Parks, Open Space, and Trails Committee is continuing their work on looking at the specific park plans, and the P&Z is just, again, starting to revisit what are the appropriate kind of zoning districts that might be used in this area. They're holding a work session tomorrow, but it's not a public hearing. They're just really kind of seeking information at this point. So I'm pretty available, so, I mean, you can contact me pretty easily, so if you have questions, come and see me. Thank you. Anything else you want to say, Dylan?
Thank everyone for your comments tonight, and just to say it again a little bit differently, if you have any comments regarding the master plan specifically, please make sure you get those to Susan fairly soon. Obviously, if you have comments about other aspects of anything that's been talked about out here, keep those coming in. But specifically, we're going to be looking at the master plan and moving that component forward for this next phase. So thank you all.